Text 32. Etu etat abhyasuyanto nanutistanti me matam sarvajnana vimuddam stan vitti nashtan achetasaha. But those who out of envy disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, be fooled and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. Very simple point. If you don't want to follow him, you are ruined, he said. Basically what happens is you have to take birth again.
So you will have a more hard time too.
No, you probably won't even have a human birth.
That's the chance you take.
Yeah,
That's what I'm
exactly.
saying, if you don't follow his instruction, you will have a more hard time.
Yeah, basically lower life forms and again go through 8.4 million species before you become a human again. So why go through so much difficulty? If you know now, then we should embrace it nicely. So yeah, so we shouldn't be there. We will be trapped in the prison of this material world for another how many lifetimes, only God knows, right? Text 33. Sadrisham chestate swasya prakrite jnanavanapi kritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature. For everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? So because Arjuna is by nature, no, he's a Kshatriya, right? So if he tries to repress artificially and goes to the forest, he cannot just sit down and meditate. What will he be thinking? Fighting. How I can jump up and fight with Bhishma, fight this guy. He'll be thinking that. Because your nature will act unless you have controlled it properly. Unless you're trained to control this thing. So that's same with us. Unless you do sadhana bhakti, your bad nature is going to come out, you know. You'll stick out of your neck, the other bad thing will start talking. So you don't want those things. So therefore, we have to train properly. And training, the best way to train is to in Krishna consciousness, within the environment that is given to us, particularly the temple environment. Come as much to the temple, do as much service. Or if you can't, then do you have a connection, internet connection to the temple?
Yeah.
They can see, yeah, so you can hear, they can hear also, right? Okay, then you can do that, all those things. Not yet?
We don't have a live stream yet.
Okay, then someone here can...
We have a privilege, so...
Okay, so all of you, work it out, do like, that's a service to Krishna. Yeah. So do it like that. Whatever your intelligence can use for Krishna, use it. So even if as Prabhupada says, even for the most highly educated person on the mundane plane, it is impossible to get out of the entanglement of Maya simply by theoretical knowledge or by separating the soul from the body. There are many so-called spiritualists who outwardly pose as advanced in the science, but inwardly or privately are completely under particular modes of nature which they are unable to surpass. Okay? So it's the same with us. We can't be pretenders or mityachara. So we cannot be like that. So it's very important. So basically don't give up your occupational duty unless you are Krishna conscious, completely Krishna conscious. But even then, we must set examples, so we won't do that. Because we want others to, do the right thing for their family members and so on.
Prabhuji, could you go over one more time 3 modes? I think I missed that. What are the 3 modes?
It's a mode of goodness, mode of passion, and mode of ignorance. They are part of this material nature, and they bind you, and so they are called gunas. Okay. Text 34. Indriyasindriyasya ragadvesha vyavastito ayuna vasam gacchad to yasya paripantino. Translation. There are principles to regulate attachment and aversion pertaining to the senses and the objects. One should not come under the control of such attachment and aversion because they are stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. So basically, we dovetail our propensities. Like we like to eat a lot, right? So we like to eat all kinds of things. So then we dovetail to eating prasadam. Instead of eating something outside, we eat at home. Therefore, if you have young children, teenagers, they like to eat a lot. So you make sure you become an expert cook so that they will like to eat prasadam at home rather than they go somewhere and eat something and suffer the consequences. So Prabhupada gives the example of sex desire. So like 5 lines down, he says, for example, sex enjoyment is a necessity for the conditioned soul, and sex enjoyment is allowed under the license of marriage ties. According to scriptural injunctions, one is forbidden to engage in sex relationships with any woman other than one's wife, with any man other than one's husband. All other women are to be considered as one's mother. But in spite of such injunctions, a man is still inclined to have sex relationships with other women. These propensities are to be curbed. Otherwise, they will be stumbling blocks on the path of self-realization. So if you want to grow in spiritual life, then certain things must be controlled. That's the point. Same with sex desire, same with eating, doing so many other different activities that are like gambling and so on. So all these things have to be curbed. Or even eating meat, because you take meat, it's in the mode of ignorance. So you cannot actually cultivate goodness in your mind. You gamble, it's also a mode of ignorance. So all this actually pulls you down, right? And it also creates, you also creating sinful activities. Therefore, you cannot actually meditate on the Supreme. Therefore, your life must change. Your lifestyle change, but you do the similar activities. You can have sex to have children. And then you can eat prasadam instead of meat. Right? And you invest in Krishna or something else like that. And then you drink madhupak or whatever, milk, whatever you offered instead of drinking liquor. Like that. Or fruit juice, whatever herb, then you offer to Krishna. It's more, what do you call, sattvic, more in the mode of goodness. So everything you do practically is to make yourself come to the platform of goodness. It is only in the platform of goodness one can appreciate spiritual injunctions and practice them. Any other modes is very difficult, not possible actually. That's the trap of the material nature. She'll always try to allure you with some things and then bind you with the modes. So we are trying to get out of these modes. But the only person who can help us is devotees or pure devotee and Krishna. So therefore we follow the instructions they give us, the rules and regulations like that. Of course, there is many stumbling blocks in the path of self-realization, but we should understand, we are going to fail sometimes, but we shouldn't give up. Okay? You continue. Because by our endeavor, the Lord gets pleased, He gives us the strength to overcome our deficiencies. Okay? So that's important to understand also. So don't also be on the other side. So now you know, it says, you shouldn't, what is that? Yeah, anyway, I was confused. Okay, if you are attached to Krishna, automatically you become detached from sense enjoyment. Yeah, so that is the point I wanted to emphasize. Yeah, it's actually in the second chapter he says, right? If you attach a higher taste, you get a higher taste. Param drisva nivartate. If you have a higher taste, you can stop the lower sense pulling, all those things. So always have something that is connected to higher taste or Krishna. Krishna is the highest taste. So always have something linked to him in your life. Always try to see. If you can't see it, ask a devotee. Call up and say, hey, I want to do this. How do you think I can connect it to Krishna? But don't ask something silly like, I want to eat prawns, fried, fritter, whatever. How can I connect it to Krishna? That doesn't work. Because it's still in the mode of ignorance and so on. So it doesn't work. So practically, yeah, devotees can always help because they also understand the many difficult conditions that we have to go through. Because remember, the Supreme Lord, He is the Supreme Lord of this entire creation, millions of created beings. He is the most supreme personality. And to approach Him is not easy. So therefore, you have to go through some difficulties. It's not a simple thing. Oh, I joined the Hare Krishna movement, so I'm scot-free now. I can get a free ticket. No, you're booked. But you haven't made a reservation. You haven't paid yet.
I heard some older devotees that they said that you need to please Radharani first, and it'll be easier to please Krishna.
To please Radharani, you have to please the devotees. So if you please the spiritual master, he is connected all the way back to Radharani. You can't go directly to Radha or Krishna. They are out of bounds now. First you purify and then you please the devotees. Devotees are serving one another. See, the mood of Radharani is displayed by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he says, Gopi Bhartu Pada Kamalaya Dasa Anudasa Dasa Dasa. Okay? So servant of the servant of the servant, that's the mood he wants. Radharani's mood is that. So therefore we serve the devotee.
Prabhuji, what is Radha Dvesha? Is Radha Dvesha?
Attachment, Raga Dvesha, attachment and then, what is that? Detachment, Raga and Dvesha, attachment and detachment. They are both about the same. Like Arjuna's problem is he is attached to his family, therefore he wants to be detached from doing his Kshatriya duty. So that's both are not acceptable. Or like someone wants to practice celibacy, then he says, I hate all women, but actually because he's attached to them. Like that. So that's attachment and aversion. We don't want aversion or attachment. We want to be freely detached by serving Krishna. Not artificially say, I don't like this or this. No, we should never think like that. If we have such desires, then we should think, oh, I am such a fallen person. I cannot give up. Oh, Krishna, help me. Oh, spiritual master, help me overcome this deficiency in my heart. And then continue your service. And one day you will see that you are not attached to such things by their mercy. One shouldn't hate anybody or overly like someone. Generally they say, right, if you employ somebody and they are too nice to you, that means there's something like that. So the same way, we cannot artificially that's the language. That's 35. Shreyan Swadharma Viguna Paradharma Swanustita Swadharme Nidanam Shreya Paradharma Vyayavaha. It is far better to discharge one's prescribed duties even though faultily than another's duties perfectly. Destruction in the course of performing one's own duty is better than engaging in another's duties, for to follow another's path is dangerous. So that means even if you cannot do your own duty properly, it's still okay. You just do it. Don't try to do someone else's duty. In his case, he's a Kshatriya and he's afraid of not doing his duty properly. Right? You say, I can't fight. To Krishna, it doesn't matter, still go and fight. But you cannot go and become like a Brahmana or a sannyas. He says you can't do that because that's not your duty. Even if you can do it better, it's still wrong. So this is against scripture also. One shouldn't be doing like that, acting in that platform. So there's two kinds of prescribed duties, just like Swartagati, like we were saying the other. One is material prescribed duties, the other one is spiritual duties. Okay? Material duties is according to your physical, psychological nature. Then you do that. That's according to Varna and Ashram, basically. And it's under the modes. So if you have a particular mode, strong mode, you do that kind of activity. Spiritual duties is what your spiritual master tells you to do. Okay, now I need 10, 16 rounds for regular principles. Now I want you to attend all morning programs every day. That is your spiritual duty. That's it, like that. So that is spiritual duty. So what is the common in both, whether it is material or spiritual? It is they have authorities. Yeah. There is an authority, always. So even material duties, someone tells you what to do. Even in your workplace, there's an authority. The spiritual place, there's an authority. So that's a common principle in both. So for material prescribed duties, as I said, the factor that they see is your nature, whether you're more of goodness, more of passion, more of ignorance or whatever. They see according to that, they tell you, okay, you do this kind of activity. It's good for your nature. But particularly in Kali Yuga nowadays, it's all mixed. People don't know, they can't understand and so on. So therefore, you find there's chaos in society. People are not happy even though they can be paid millions of dollars because they are not discharging their duties properly. So just like a Brahmana, he is not supposed to perform violent activities. Whereas a Kshatriya is allowed to do violence. So therefore, Arjuna, he is a Kshatriya, he should be allowed to be violent. So Krishna is telling him to go and fight. Unless one goes beyond these modes, then he or she cannot not do their duty. That means you have to transcend your modes. Anishtray guna bhava Arjuna, rise above the modes Arjuna. Then you are not disturbed by all these things. So Krishna is telling you. So when you can transcend your materially prescribed duties, then to do that you have to clean your heart. And the best method to clean your heart is chanting and service. Not just chanting. You have to serve also. You just can't come and chant a little bit and go home and do nonsense. You come, chant, do service, then you won't do nonsense. Because there's a chance you will do nonsense. It's very powerful. The real nature is very powerful. Don't think it's nothing. It's ruthless. So don't challenge it. You will lose. It is a portion of the Lord's energy, very powerful energy. This powerful energy is used to keep us within this material world. So therefore we have to learn the hard way. We are kicked by the material nature. Ouch, ouch. Then we do the things properly. So when you transcend the modes of material nature, then you are 100% Krishna conscious. Otherwise you will always mix, and then you listen to your mind, yeah, today I'm too tired, I want to get up, I deserve my sleeping, beauty rest and like that. No, we have to constantly fight the mind, the body and our senses to show that we are crossing and transcending these senses.
Got a question about waking up early.
It's difficult.
If you work last night and you work late, how could you wake up early?
Depends on the individuals. Some people don't really need to sleep so much. Some need to sleep a lot. But if you train yourself sufficiently, you
But I'm
won't.
saying like somebody sleeps at 1 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
and just got duty started, get up by 5 o'clock. Then you cannot get up by 5.
So why are you sleeping at 1 o'clock?
It's an example.
Okay. So then we see if it's only once in a while.
It's
okay.
working, not something else.
Not every day. You can't work 1 o'clock. Huh? Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because they don't understand these principles. Well, you now you understand, so you have to figure out, can I end early or not? That's something, unless your clients are up at 1 o'clock and that's when you meet, that's a different situation. Then your office should give you time to sleep in the daytime, no? Something like that. Otherwise you can't live your life, you'll die within
It's a question of priority.
That is another matter. But sometimes they have these clients who are up at the other side of the world that you have to call. I know in IT they do a lot of it. Right? And then at the end of the
That's
day,
what I'm asking you.
yeah, at the end of the day, how many days do you stay up late?
Nah, I sleep at by like 11:30. So.
That's also bad, yeah.
Yeah, but I have.
For every hour you sleep before midnight, you get 2 hours of rest. For every hour after midnight, you have to make up 2 hours. You understand? So if you sleep after midnight and you say you have your 6 hours sleep, actually you need to sleep a further 6 hours. The way the body is structured and with the movement of the sun and so on, you have to sleep before midnight to get replenished, the heart and the brain and everything. Every time you sleep after midnight, your body is ruined. You are only shortening your lifespan.
So how many hours is good to sleep?
Ideally 6 to 7 hours should be fine, but at least you should go to bed by 10, 10:30. Not later than
When
that.
my
I mean, once in a while you have to stay up and do some long distance thing, that's a different matter. But if it's every day, then you quit your job. That's my recommendation. Go and find something that's more sensible.
But I have to talk to my programmers back home, and by 9 o'clock it's over there 9:30, so I have to be there 9 to 11:30 to talk to them.
Just adjust something. Anyway, you can do if you really, very truly,
So I'm
desperately.
just asking for solution.
I can't give you solution of your material things. I'm giving you suggestions. I cannot give you. You have to decide what you want. Then if you quit, you come and blame me for your job.
Good job.
Because I remember long ago I told someone that he was in this meat industry. So I told him it's not good. So the very next day he quit. Then he told me I did quit, and then I was worried. Anyway, he got a better job. He's very successful now. The point is, you have to decide. If it's interfering with your spiritual life, which takes actually a higher priority, or your material life, then you will make the necessary changes. Yeah. But you make the decision. Don't come and tell me I told you.
No, I'm not going to blame you. I understand you now.
I'm joking. Yeah, once you transcend your modes, then you can act in freely for Krishna. And the example is given is Vishwamitra. Okay. Before he was a Kshatriya, he was always failing, but finally he transcended and became a Brahmana. Then he could act properly. Or Parasurama was a Brahmana and he acted as a Kshatriya, but he was empowered by the Lord to do certain activities. So as long as you are motivated materially and you have material desires, then you have to do your prescribed duties. But at the same time, you should also do devotional service so that you can transcend the modes and then do pure devotional service. In 34, Krishna was saying about attachment and aversion. So he wants to inquire about this thing, and so therefore he's asking this question. Arjuna vacha athakena prayuktoyam papam charti purushaha anichanna vivashneya valadeva niyojitaha. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? So when he asks this question, then Krishna wants to explain to him. So Krishna will go into a little bit of explanation about the living entity, where he is coming from and so on. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains that originally the soul is coming from the spiritual realm. The reason why he is acting differently here is because he is covered by the material nature. He is covered by all the material nature, or the coverings of material nature, or the contaminations of material nature. But by nature he is not sinful. He is pure. But because of this contamination, he identifies with different things and then he acts sinfully in this conditioned body. And without even sometimes thinking. So, sinful actions are not, however, Prabhupada says, impelled by the super soul within our hearts, but are due to another cause, as the Lord explains in the next verse. So, that's the question. He wants to know why I am acting sinfully even though I am supposed to be a pure soul. So this is the answer Krishna gives, text 37.
Yeah. I have a question. Now, what do you mean by O descendant of Krishna?
What?
Now, Arjun says like O descendant of Vrishni, right?
Yeah, he's Vrishni.
What's this?
It's a line disciple, one of the king descendant, Vrishni.
Vrishni. That's it. Thank you.
So anyway, what was I saying? Okay.
37.
Text 27. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Kamesha Krodesha Rajo Guno Samudbhava Mahashanu Mahapapma Viddyenam Nihagaininam. So, translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. So, what it means is, when the spirit soul comes into contact with the material mode of passion, it changes its nature. It identifies differently, so it thinks differently and it acts differently. But originally the spirit soul is Sachit Ananda.
It's pure.
It's pure and it's It is originally in the spiritual world, it loves Krishna. Okay? But when it decides to do its own selfish enjoyment, as soon as it thinks like that, because the love that was for Krishna is now pointed towards itself, selfishly, that becomes lust. And that's what happens. Pure love to lust. Misuse of your independence, the little independence we have. So then immediately it becomes into contact. The tendency to enjoy separately from Krishna is actually material. So therefore it is immediately placed into this Maya Shakti, or in this mundane world, material universe. Immediately, instantly. As soon as you give up this desire to enjoy the material world, immediately you can go back to spiritual. Instantly. But because we are so conditioned, we cannot give up this at the moment.
So is Maya controlled by Krishna?
What do you think?
Yes.
What do you think?
Yeah. Sometimes I hear that Krishna cannot change Maya.
Okay, who is Krishna?
It's the Supreme.
Okay, then if he is the Supreme Person, who created everything?
Yeah.
Huh? How can he create something that is better than him? So this is very logical. People always come. He created everything. So obviously he has control over everything. So don't get into this mind games with people. They always say all this kind of nonsense. But it's not true. He is Supreme Lord. He is always eternally supreme. No one can be more supreme than him. The only thing is, because of the love of a devotee, he submits. The love can conquer him. But otherwise, he is supreme in all respect. Okay. So, yeah. So originally, the spirit soul has so much loving propensity, but it misuses that tendency to want to enjoy. Because of that, he is placed in the material universe to try and enjoy. But the material nature is too powerful, and there are conditions, there are rules and so on, and therefore he is always trapped in this universe.
So is Maya is a test for us?
Maya is a prison house.
That's why he created Maya, so he can test us?
Yes.
How pure we are?
Not pure. He is giving us an opportunity to give up the tendency to be independent of him. That's the main reason for this material universe. Otherwise, the other reasons is he can come and do his pastimes.
Enjoy himself.
Yeah, in a different way. Alright, so therefore that is what lust is. It forces one to act sinfully. Therefore Krishna says it's the all-devouring enemy, sinful enemy. So when the lust, right, which is a change of love, when it's a selfish thing, it is lust. Because you want to enjoy it, independent of it, therefore it is lust. When that same lust is transformed to loving Krishna, that becomes pure love, prema. So kama becomes prema when it's pointed towards Krishna. When it's pointed towards us, it is kama, greed. So when it is satisfied, we become greedy. We want more of it. It cannot be actually satisfied. When you can't get it, you become angry. The mode of ignorance overpowers us. So here, if you look at the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes in the second sentence, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust, as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues the material existence. And that's why we are always in this material world. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity. And it is lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. Wrath is the manifestation of the mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as wrath and other corollaries. If therefore the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, which is prescribed duties, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. Okay? That's very important for us to understand. It's because of this that we have a hard time trying to focus. Lust is like that. It's very, it's like a serpent. If you feed it more milk, it will just drink and become more poisonous. That's all. So and the senses and all, with your lust, desire, you will do something foolish. If you contemplate on something, then the lust will take over. So therefore, you cannot contemplate on enjoying independent of Krishna. Anything that is wrong, just get it out of the mind. But if it's in the mind, you will think about it, then eventually you will make the mistake. So therefore, it's very important to understand how it works. If you keep meditating on it, then the lust will overpower you. You cannot defeat it. And that's why Arjuna was saying, how is it that this one, even if someone is not willing to do it, is doing something foolish. Why? Because he's covered, his intelligence is lost. Right? So therefore we have to be, just like the other day we were talking, one Sue was saying that if you like chocolates, then why would you go to a chocolate factory, right? Naturally you will then want to eat chocolate. So same way, you do not expose yourself to such situations. So then you can, by meditating or doing service to Krishna, then you will be able to control it eventually. In the beginning, you have to completely not expose yourself. And later on, once you are purified, even if you see it, it's not going to disturb you. Okay? That's how it is. But don't every few days go and see if you are purified. It won't work like that.
It's not gradual. It's not gradual.
It is a gradual thing, but at the same time, you don't go and see if you are purified or not. It takes some time. The more you focus on Krishna, then the less you focus on material things, naturally. So therefore, lust cannot affect you. Therefore, if you just work for 1 week chanting and then you think, I should be purified. To understand for how many lifetimes you have been doing this nonsense. So it takes a while to purify the consciousness.
Take the dirt out.
Yeah, take the dirt out. So therefore, we need to keep reading the Bhagavad Gita, inquire questions and discuss, and then we'll find that our situation is much better. At least we can start off in the right footing. Text 38. Sometimes people will ask, how do you control anger and so on, because tendency is there. You can control anger by using it in the service of Krishna, and the example is Hanuman. He was angry with Ravana, so he went and burnt Lanka as a service for Ram. Yeah. So that's how you use. You have to use it as a service for Krishna. You can't use it against somebody else. So that's a unique situation.
Also to warn Ram that if only a small person like Hanuman Maharaj can do something, what will happen if
Ram himself cannot come. Yeah. But that should engage your anger in that case. Yeah.
Constructive anger.
Yes, everything has to be linked to Krishna. So you can spiritualize, but envy is one thing you cannot spiritualize. Okay? So that one you have to give up. Okay, text 30.
So you can relax your mind if you are angry.
If you are angry, then get out of the situation you are in first. Or have somebody take you out of the situation. If you are easily a person who gets angry, then you shouldn't be in such situation. You should know, if if I go there, I'll get angry, or so you get somebody so that if you are showing anger, then they will take you out. Say, just take time out.
But if you make somebody angry, what do you do?
Well, first of all, why are you making somebody angry?
Because if they are doing some stupid stuff, they don't need you.
Okay, then have a proper discourse with them. You know. Instead of saying, why you do these things? Huh? You can say, excuse me, I want to, may I say something that I feel uncomfortable, or, and then you have a nice discourse with them. Instead of saying, no, I don't like what you do, there's a way to talk to people, so we need to also train ourselves. Think about it before you approach a person to tell them, okay, this is wrong. Generally, ego is so big, right? Everyone's ego is as big as this universe. So someone says you are wrong, immediately you defend, right? So if you can,
We are programmed like that.
if you can make friends with them, and then you say, I want to tell you something, I hope you don't take it in a wrong way, but is it okay? And then he asks, if they say okay, then you tell them. If they say no, then don't say it. That's one thing. The other thing is, if that person has an authority, then you tell the authority what you feel that they should be told. You don't go and do it. But if it's your kid, that's a different matter. That's a different matter. But in ordinary circumstances, you have to see who's the authority. Tell the authority, please, I feel this is wrong. And then if the authority agrees with you, then they will tell them. If the authority don't agree, they'll tell you. Mind your own business. So it's like, so in all cases, then you don't get angry.
It's my choice.
It's like that. It's our ego. Everything hurts our ego when people tell us. So, text 38. Text 38. Dumena vriyate vani Yatadarsho malena cha Yato bena vrito garbhas Tatate nedam As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. According to the type of body you take, there's different degrees of covers, lust is covering you. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes, there are 3 degrees of covering of the living entity, by which his pure consciousness is obscured. This covering is but lust under different manifestations, like smoke in the fire, dust on the mirror, and the womb about the embryo. When lust is compared to smoke, it is understood that the fire of the living spark can be a little perceived. In other words, when the living entity exhibits his Krishna consciousness slightly, he may be likened to the fire covered by smoke. Although fire is necessary where there is smoke, there is no outward manifestation of fire in the early stage. This stage is like the beginning of Krishna consciousness. The dust on the mirror refers to a cleansing process of the mirror of the mind by so many spiritual methods. The best process is to chant the holy names of the Lord. The embryo covered by the womb is an analogy illustrating a helpless position, for the child in the womb is so helpless that he cannot even move. This stage of living condition can be compared to that of the trees. The trees are also living entities, but they have been put in such a condition of life by such a great exhibition of lust that they are almost void of all consciousness. The covered mirror is compared to the birds and beasts, and the smoke-covered fire is compared to the human being. In the form of human being, the living entity may revive a little Krishna consciousness, and if he makes further development, the fire of spiritual life can be kindled in the human form of life. By careful handling of the smoke in the fire, fire can be made to blaze. Therefore, the human form of life is a chance for the living entity to escape the entanglement of material existence. In the human form of life, one can conquer the enemy lust by cultivation of Krishna consciousness under able guidance. So if you are a very lusty person, then chances are in the next life you will take a birth like a tree. The greater your lust is, the more lower your birth is. Like that. So these are the three levels. The tree, the birds and bees, and the human being. So these are three levels of covering. Lust covers that. So in the human form of life, we should not use or depend on trying to enjoy too much this material world. That is increasing our lusty desires. So therefore, we should be careful. It should be used to kindle our Krishna consciousness. Okay, that's the important thing. Therefore, we always keep telling, don't waste your time doing nonsense, don't do this, don't do that. Do what is good for your spiritual life. Yeah. Make it a priority to increase your spiritual life. Right, so text 39. Avritam jnanam etena jnanino nityavairina kamarupena kankaya duspurena nalena cha. Thus the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. So that you can see, the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by its eternal enemy in the form of lust. And that's why we're all stuck here. We are not thinking in terms of what Krishna wants or how to please Krishna. Rather, we are trapped in thinking what we want. So these are further characteristics of the lust. It covers the living entity's pure consciousness. What is a pure consciousness? It's not a consciousness. Huh?
Love Krishna.
Yeah, to love Krishna, serve Krishna. And then again Krishna says lust can never be satisfied. Yeah. You cannot satisfy. If you pour fuel into fire, does the fuel burn out? Not necessarily. It will keep burning and burning. So that's how lust is. The more you feed it, the more it manifests itself. So it never gets satisfied. So then Prabhupada says, he quotes a Manusmriti, and he says, lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment. Cannot. Just as fire is never extinguished by a constant supply of fuel. In the material world, the center of all activities is sex, and thus this material world is called Maitunya Agara, or the shackles of sex life. In the ordinary prison house, criminals are kept within bars. Similarly, the criminals who are disobedient to the laws of the Lord are shackled by sex life. Advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of the material existence of a living entity. We don't want to increase staying here forever. This is not a place for us. This is not our home. Yes, this is not at all our home. Therefore, this lust is a symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within this material world. While one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually that so-called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense and joy. It's a trap. You think, oh, it felt good, no, let me do it again, and then oh, it's not good enough, then more and more and more, but never satisfied. Never satisfied. But if you serve Krishna, you're always satisfied, and you're always happy, continuously happy. And you feel eternally happy, actually. So that's the difference between the serving Krishna and serving our own sense. So this material world is, as I said before, it is Durga, or the fortress, prison house. And another name for it is Maitunya Agara, or the shackles of sex life. Everywhere you go, if you ride on the highway, all the billboards, it's all based on sex only, right? They sell a car, they'll have to show either a thinly clad woman or a hunk of a man or something like that. It's all based on that. It's all body, it's all no connection at all. Sometimes they will show them. They sell you a TV, they'll put a girl there, right? They sell you a car, put a girl there. They sell you a nappy for babies, they'll put a girl there also. Something like that. It's always like that. The advertisements, everything is just based on sex. Because they say sex sells.
That's where they make lots more money.
Yeah, basically it's money. But then they also don't know, no matter how much money they make, they still are not happy.
Yeah.
They continuously keep doing, thinking they will be happy
When the
if they get
recession went
another.
down, only business was doing well.
It always does well, whether there is economy or no economy. The industry is always, there's always industry for that. That's the point. So therefore, the more you want to do all this material expansion, it just means you're going to live here longer in this material world and suffer in different lives you suffer different things. This life you suffer something, the next life you take birth and suffer another thing. And this will go on ad infinitum until you decide to get out of this material world. Okay, now,
Excuse me. We are all living in the same material world, including the kids, right? Children.
yes.
How is that adults get affected by all these things? They get influenced by all these materialistic things versus the kids or the...
Are you sure your kids are not influenced?
As that.
That's because they are under your
Under our influence.
jurisdiction, so they don't do
No,
that
but even if
much.
you take an average 5, 6, 7 year old,
You want to bet?
we don't... What's that?
No, 5, 6 year old? Yeah, because their
No, I
consciousness
mean-
is not developed.
Yeah.
That's
So
one
as,
thing.
as the consciousness grows, is it something that it is susceptible to this kind of materialistic?
No, also your ability to understand and perceive how to exploit material nature takes place as you grow older. You understand? Before that, you are dependent on the parents for your sense enjoyment. As a child, your main consciousness is Annamaya. You know? As you grow older, your consciousness develops, so you understand there are other people also who are conscious like me. So you understand they also have life, Pranamaya. Then as you grow even older, then you become Manomaya. You think, oh, I can understand all these things. So in one of these levels, you decide to experiment with your senses also. And that's one thing. The other thing is karma. You have karma, you have the material nature acting on you. So at a certain time, this karma becomes fructified. The fruits of your previous life, the desires will come in your hearts. And then you have to fulfill those. So therefore, at a certain age, these desires will creep up. So then you look for those things to enjoy.
And Prabhuji, actually, when you're born, when the kids, they're pure, right? They say pure soul. So
They're
it's
innocent.
not innocent,
Yes.
not pure soul.
We're all conditioned.
Because
It's just that the karma is in seed form. It hasn't manifested. Yeah.
I thought depending on the karma, they get exploited and then they get unconditioned.
No, the karma to take birth is all there, and then their karma from the baby to maybe 14 years old, the parents take the karma. So when a baby can't really do much, so the parents take the karma. So, and then at a certain age, when the child starts thinking, 13, 14 years, then karma slowly goes to them, themselves. By the time 16, or depends how their consciousness is, they take all the karma. But as long as they live under your house, you also share the karma with them if they do nonsense. Because you're supporting them either directly or indirectly.
But children also develop from young age, right? They are so much attached to the toys.
Yeah.
Nothing but material,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So they are not free from attachments.
No, they are not free.
Yeah, so they have their own attachment to material.
Oh yeah, everyone has that.
Kids are attached to their parents, so
That also an attachment.
they're attached. Right?
But you need that attachment so that there is a,
Survival.
the parents will take care of it. Otherwise, you will see the baby has a certain kind of feature that your parent will be attracted to take care. Right? If they have the adult face baby, you don't want to look at the
That's
kid.
also the beauty, right? That's also the beauty of a parent.
That's the other thing also. Yeah. But this is all set up like that. You have no choice but to take care of the kid. The facial features, they're so attractive. Even though the head is bigger, almost as big as the body, Yeah. Yeah. But it's set up like that. This whole thing is very well designed to trap us and keep us. So is that alright? Badrinath?
Question. It's an example, it's not a real story.
Did you get the battery? I'm sure you put
Like a small kid have a knife and he killed, just by playing he just killed somebody. So that's a karma that he had from his last life or something?
Karma is so complicated, I can't tell you like that.
Yeah, but I'm saying.
Even the law, demigods sometimes cannot understand it. But it's possible. It is possible or accidental. And there's some forces at play.
So as soon as he's born, his karma starts.
Yeah.
If he does something bad, it's going to have it.
Well, if a little kid steps on some insect and kills it, he's not really responsible that much. You cannot hold him responsible because he doesn't know in that sense. So therefore, most of his karma will be taken by the parents.
So parents need to take care of the kid. Don't do that, don't do this.
Yeah.
So if the kid is not taught proper manners or whatever it is, proper way by the parents, although the bad karma that the kid does, it gets transferred to the parents.
Not transfer, you share.
Share.
Well, when the kid is old enough, you brought him like a fool, then you have to take something,
Will be affected too. Our
Yeah,
lives also
will be affected.
And you also will be crying all the time, basically.
Yeah.
After certain
Isn't
age.
another way to look into this, Prabhuji?
Hmm?
Isn't there is another way to look into this? As I think the first class you gave the example of I don't remember the Maharaj, but whenever you say Hare Krishna to the living being or kids, they
Help
die.
them.
Yeah, you're helping them to just get a moksha. So
Yeah, you're helping them
Yes.
purify, but the point she is asking is different, that if they do something bad, won't you get some reaction? Your own kid, you
they are
will.
they are doing it unknowingly, without any intention or
Well,
without any.
Okay, let me ask you something. There's a fire and the baby touches the fire, but the baby doesn't know, unintentionally. Will it burn?
Yes, definitely.
Okay,
That's
so
a lesson
then,
for them.
yeah, so karma is like that. It's not a question of whether intentional or not. There will be some reaction. Whether what kind of reaction, we are not in the capacity to understand some of these reactions. But it is always there.
So when we say that's a vidhi, actually, so it's a fate. So it's not a fate, it's just
Fate means what?
fate.
Yeah, fate means what? Destiny, right?
Destiny, yeah.
Yeah, destiny means what? Your prayers karma. It's all based on that. Something you do something wrong. Maybe you may have done it a million lives ago, but it may only come in this life. How are you going to determine why it's coming in this life? It's very hard. It's a very complicated topic.
So the purify is just chanting and doing service.
Yeah, that's why whatever you do, you just connect it to Krishna. So then those karma will be burnt away in the fire of devotional service. That's the only way you can cut it in the root. Otherwise this karma will propagate. Karma comes from your desire. So this karma will make you have some desire, and that desire will create new karma.
Does it sanctify the ancestors then? As you become pure
Yes.
through Krishna consciousness,
Yes.
are your ancestors clear?
Once you become pure devotee, perfect, then your ancestors will be also be saved. At least certain number of generations, not all.
That happens.
Like 4 generations?
No, I don't know. Depends. Some places is 7 generations forward and backward. Another place is 14 generations forward and backward.
But
So
why-
the Lord can basically help you.
But how can you say forward? Because we have done, right? If we,
That is the benediction the Lord is giving. Why are you so worried about that?
no, I thought once we attained that pure.
Well, if you have kids, their generation will also benefit from your becoming pure. If you are not, then your previous generation.
So our ancestors have done good karma, it's going to affect us.
Well, your ancestors did good karma. If they have, then they have a good child. If you are the child, that is the karma for them. And hopefully you are better than them.
So Prabhuji, your ancestors, all of them are pure.
I do not. That's out of the topic.
But why others are being rewarded for good karma that you did?
It's not karma.
I see.
Material.
When you are doing for Krishna, it's not karma anymore.
But then why is he rewarding the
Material.
forefathers?
That is, are we even talking about karma? No, we are talking about devotion. So they get benefit forward and backward.
But why is that?
That's a benefit, Krishna's benefit.
So forward
It's a blessing.
the kids, right?
Because they have produced such a wonderful person after so many generations. So,
Okay.
yeah.
The reward.
A reward, you can say.
So is the ignorance and maybe the innocence and then the ignorance, they are better than the lust and the egos?
Well, I didn't understand a single thing.
Kids once again,
Okay.
we talked about kids being ignorant and innocent.
Yeah.
They are well off than others who have knowledge, a little bit of knowledge also.
Yeah.
Who can interpret the things.
If you think like, yeah, just that extent, then
Yeah,
go on.
I mean interpretation of the things.
Yeah.
And then because of that they become lusty and they
Because of what?
I mean, as we learn more things.
No,
And
it's
then we
not that
interpret the
they
things
learn.
in a
No,
different way and then we
you
get attached
didn't
to that.
understand. Your karma will come up. Your desires that is about to take place, karma phala from previous life is going to ripen at a certain age. Then you will be thinking about those desires to fulfill. In your previous life, maybe you wanted to come to America, so this life you took birth in such and such family and then you came here because you wanted to come here. You understand? This is your karma. This is things that are set up. So you wanted to come here. Not your parents or anybody else, but you wanted to come.
So we are here in this class because we wanted from the last life.
Maybe, but at least in this life you made a positive decision to come.
So we all decided to be here this time.
So what we can plan for our next life. I mean, if we are not liberated this year,
You don't want to
this
come
life.
back.
Yeah, whatever you do will help you, right? Krishna says, Swalpam abhi asya
Whatever you
dharmas,
do,
yeah.
yeah.
That's good.
Anyway, don't worry so much of this karma thing. Main thing you have to do is
Chanting.
do your devotional service. And then if you have children, you teach them these good things. Make them chant, make them come to the temple. These are your duty. These are the actual duties of the parent.
One question.
If the parent, nothing to do with karma.
No karma.
Worrying about karma is attachment.
Yeah, it's just a waste of time actually because you can't do much. Only thing you can do is do devotional service to stop your karma. Anyway, let me go to the next verse, then we can. It's now from verses 40 to 43. Krishna tells Arjuna how you can conquer the enemy lust. Having said what it is, then he's going to explain where they are and how to overcome them. Okay? Text 40. Indriyani mano buddhi asyadhisthana muchyate etar vimohayate esa jnanam avidyadehinam. Translation: the senses, the mind and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. So now he tells Arjuna where they are found within this material body, where they reside mainly. So in our mind, and in the senses, and it also affects our intelligence. So if there's all lust is in those places, then you will do material things to satisfy the mind, intelligence and your senses. So therefore when you do devotional service, you are purifying the mind, the intelligence and the senses purified because of this process. And then they don't disturb us. So these are the three places where the lust resides in our body. Okay? He's giving us hint. Krishna is giving us a hint. Because we want to attack them, as Prabhupada says, there's a military force, you must know where they are so you can get rid of them. Okay? And mind is the center of all the sense activities. In the mind is what? Sankalpa and Vikalpa, right? Accepting and rejecting. That's what the mind does. So if it is based on senses, you'll say, yes, I want to enjoy this. And then the senses will overpower and then you are lost. But if you have purified intelligence, even though the mind say, I want this, the intelligence can say, no. And then you can control your senses. So this is how they operate. Now, the mind is lower than your intelligence. Mind is lower than intelligence. Higher than intelligence is the soul. Now the soul is covered by the ego. So if the ego is not purified also, you have a problem. Okay, then you will identify with the body. So mind, intelligence and ego. So naturally the intelligence must always control the mind. But for most of us, because our intelligence is not purified, the mind is always above the intelligence. It is saying, accept this, and the intelligence is thinking how we can enjoy, like that, through the senses. So that's what is happening to most of us. So Prabhupada writes, the enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul, and therefore now Krishna is giving hints of those places, so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is the center of all the activities of senses, and thus when we hear about sense objects, the mind generally becomes a reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification. And we all know that when we think of something, it happens like that. And as a result, the mind and senses become the repositories of lust. Next, the intelligence department becomes a capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next door neighbor of the spirit soul. Lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with matter and thus with the mind and senses. Okay? So therefore we need to purify all these things. The spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. This false identification of the spirit soul is very nicely explained in this Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's the verse. I'll just read the translation. A human being who identifies this body made of three elements with his self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsman, who considers the land of birth worshipable, and he goes to the place of pilgrimage simply to take a bath rather than meet men of transcendental knowledge, there is to be considered like an ass or a cow. Okay? That's a heavy statement. It means we should go to spiritual places to try to learn how to get out of this material, not just go there and take a bath, and then come back and say, oh, I've been to Ganga, I've been there.
I got purified.
I got purified. And let me do the nonsense again. Right? Like you go to the church on Saturday and Sunday, and then from Monday you do nonsense, and then on the Saturday again you go and say, oh Father, I'll have to confess my sins. So these things are not recommended by all scriptures. Yeah.
The mind, intelligence, they all reside in brain.
Brain? Mind. For us to operate within this small body, the brain acts as like the receptor. Okay? Like you want to watch something live, it comes in that TV box, But actually the events are happening where? Somewhere else, but this is a receptor. So it's the same way. The intelligence and mind are elements, but the brain uses it to allow you to access.
So we have antennas.
Not antennas, that's how it is. That's how it is. The soul accesses the mind and intelligence through the gross brain.
The mind and the intelligence, they are in the brain.
Yeah.
Just like we talked about soul being
Within the heart, so it's there, but it's not in that sense because it's a subtle element, but it's the brain that uses it to access.
Prabhuji, did you say the intelligence takes over the mind? So I thought intelligence like it was always divine and
Not always, it's not
lower
divine.
intelligence
Yeah,
that the mind
if
thinks
it's
something.
full of lust, it's lower.
So it's not something that that's either there or not there. It is there, but it's at a lower level.
It is an element. When you take this body, you also have intelligence with the body. So you are using that intelligence. Because the soul is identifying with this intelligence. As soon as the soul purifies all this, then the soul will be in its own consciousness, the real consciousness.
So the intelligence is consciousness, and no.
No, you are the consciousness. The soul is the consciousness. Yeah. It's a bit technical. Let me put it in another way. When you take this body, you're given the mind, you're given the body, you're given the false ego, and you identify with this body, and then you use this intelligence, you use the mind. Okay? But the soul itself has its own pure mind, pure intelligence, and so on. But because it identifies with this body, it uses this intelligence which is supplied with this body as itself.
The soul has to use its own intelligence to get to such a state.
Yeah, to do that it has to purify the intelligence it's using now.
But what happened to its own intelligence? If it is using the intelligence...
Now the false ego is covering, no?
Oh, I see.
You have to awaken it.
Yeah.
And how do you get rid of the false ego? By humility?
By chanting and
chanting.
service.
Everything. Above.
That's the main point, right?
So if you want to get out, then you start becoming serious. Otherwise you have to go through another millions of lifetimes before you can come to another class. It's true. If you miss the boat, that's it. So it's not
But
a...
connected. Like how would you know? Like next time I come in a different form.
When you become serious now, why are you waiting for next
No,
time?
no, I'm asking. Previously, what form I was? Is there
There's something you
connection?
must have done, that's why you are here in this temple.
Right.
Yeah. So that means it's a good thing you must have done.
So it's continuous.
Yeah, to some extent, yes. Or someone was kind to you and they prayed for you. That's the other way. Or a devotee met you recently in this life and told you come to the temple. So that's the mercy also.
So what's the difference?
I cannot tell you.
Anyway, don't worry about your previous life and all that. You know, it's like the example given in the scripture is, if you are drowning, you don't think how I am drowning. You are thinking how I get out of this place. So once you get out, then you will have the answers. So don't worry about all the other things. Text 41. Tasmat tvam indriyani yadav niyam ya bharata rishabha apmanam prajahihenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Translation. Therefore, Arjuna, best of the Bharatas, in the very beginning curbed this great symbol of sin, lust, by regulating the senses and slay this destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. So, very beginning you have to start from young actually, but for us we didn't know, so now we are here, we should start the process in this life when we get the chance. So don't feel that, oh, I wasted my life, I can't do it. No, you can do it. That's the idea.
We can teach our kids though.
You can teach your kids, you can teach yourself. And when you teach your kids, then your kids will learn so quickly they will be your teachers. They'll
They
say,
grasp all these things.
huh?
Will they be able to grasp the things?
Oh, they'll grasp much easier than we do. We have so much conditioning, we may say no.
Because we have gone through some of the experiences. As you grow, you have more experiences, and then you can relate to your experiences, and you can understand the Gita much better.
They will also understand if you teach them now, like a lot of Indian families, they've started eating meat and so on, but then now when you bring the child and say, Krishna says we shouldn't eat, then they will immediately accept that. And then they will tell others, no, it's not good because God said we shouldn't eat. Right? So,
You are more accepting.
yeah, if you, with love and so on, if you explain, easy. I've seen kids teach their parents, no, you can't do that. You have to, and they go to shopping center, I've seen them also. I'll check the label, see there's no animal product. And the parents don't think clearly, even though they have more education.
A real example.
Hmm.
When my kid was 3 years old, I was bringing him to class. He never wanted to come.
Hmm.
Now he just waits to come on Sunday to come here.
Yeah, so he is forcing you to come to Sunday. Yeah.
But now I never told him to read a Bhagavad-Gita. He said I want a Gita. So now he's reading.
Because he hears, he comes to class, he associates, comes to the school, so he always hears about it.
He's reading, but he's not understanding what is it. But
That's okay.
he's reading.
Yeah, my son is chanting Hare Krishna at his school.
Yeah.
During the break that they have, he gathers his friends and he says, yeah, I say this, you can say this.
Yeah, there you go.
So they're purifying from now.
Yeah, so they're already preaching more than you guys. Okay, so the lust, as you know, is in the senses, mind and intelligence, and through that they attack us. They become weakest when we follow religious principles. When we follow all this sadhana bhakti, chanting and all. So then the lust the intelligence gets purified, the senses get purified, because we are giving prasadam, all this, so much to purify our brain, so that the mind gets purified, intelligence gets purified. So when we do all that, they become weaker, and then once they are weaker, then you can control your destiny like that. And not lust make you feel attracted for mundane things or material things.
So at some point, as the mind is changing, and the consciousness is
Elevated.
elevating, at some point, there's no turning back.
Yeah. That's good.
So you have to really make a conscious choice that that's
Oh
the
yeah,
direction you want to go
In the beginning it will be a fight. It will be a hard fight. Sometimes you lose, sometimes the mind and senses win. But you continue on, and then you'll find that you will win more and they will win less. And then after a while, you will win completely.
It's a miracle, right?
Or you go to the crazy house.
Or you end up we are already in a crazy house. This material world is a crazy place.
Okay.
Alright, so if you study about the soul, we understand, then we know what is good for the soul. If you have no knowledge about the soul, then you always will be feeding the senses.
Where is the soul reside in the body?
Will you come for the class? You ask them. They will teach you now. They are the teachers.
Close to the heart.
Close to your heart.
Within the heart.
But they said we do transplant from heart to another heart.
But the
soul changes too.
soul doesn't change. It stays in that region. It is a spirit soul. It doesn't matter. It's a different dimension altogether. So even if you take the heart, it's still there.
It's subtle, it's very subtle.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
it's on a different dimension altogether. It's subtle element. More subtle than subtle. It's transcendental.
So it's like the power in the battery. You can't.
Well, you can take out the battery, That energy is not that good, but yeah, you can say. It exists in that region of the heart. Even if you do heart transplant, it's still there.
Jivatma.
Yeah, Jivatma still resides. He doesn't leave the body until the time he's kicked out.
So it's like a light inside our body, but very tiny.
Anyway, just listen first.
Sometimes I think it's no need to analyze
Yeah,
so much.
too much is trying to. It's a subtle thing. You don't have the capacity at the moment to understand. It's just there in the heart.
I mean, you cannot take everything literally.
It is there. It's there. It's just that, I don't know. It's more than that. What can I say? It's an entity. You are there living in a transcendental position. You are actually transcendental, but because you are occupying this body, you cannot see yourself. It's even the modern scientists can't, because material thing cannot see transcendental. Therefore, you can't see. It's there. This is your home. You're stuck here. You cannot leave the body until the time for you to leave. Either your karma is done or it's time for you. And then you get kicked out. Even though you want to stay, you'll be kicked out. You have no choice. Anyway, follow regulated principles, study the scriptures, understand who we are a spirit soul. We have a positive relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a loving relationship. And if we perform that, then the lust is easily,
Kids.
yeah, lust is easily defeated like that. So, your lust for material nature will transform into love for the Supreme Lord. Okay, so that's the idea behind it. So we regulate our senses. So senses must be regulated. So you have to know, you can only do certain things, you can't do everything. You cannot unlimitedly eat. Even eating also you have to regulate how much to eat. Even if you are eating prasadam also you have to regulate how much to eat. So that regulation. Even when you eat too much prasadam, you are lusty. Your lustiness is coming. So it is like you are not actually honoring. Prasadam is meant to be honored because it's not different from Krishna. So if you don't honor it, then you are acting in a lusty manner. You're trying to enjoy too much. So anyone can become a pure devotee if they follow this process of devotional service, and your lust can be turned into love of God. Why would they want to slam like that?
It's the kids.
Yeah, but still, why would they want to slam?
They're playing with it.
Because the door at the closure, door closure.
Karma is out of order.
Alright, so let's go to the next verse, text 42. Indriyani parani ahu Indrebhya param manaha Manasastu para buddhi Yo buddhe paratastu saha Translation. The working senses are superior to dull matter. Okay, so our body is made up of different matter. So within the body, superior to that, all these bodies, they are working senses. And then mind is higher than the senses. Okay. Our mind is higher. It's supposed to be higher. It's more subtle. The senses are gross. And then intelligence is even finer than the mind. So it's higher than the mind. And he, the soul, is even higher than the intelligence. So that is important. So the senses are mainly, if it's not used properly, it is mainly used for enjoying. Okay? So that is the hierarchy is given by Krishna. The hierarchy of the soul. The soul is above intelligence, which is above the mind, which is above the five senses, which is above the dull matter. So all this matter is dull. Even our body is dull without the senses and without the soul in it. Otherwise, it's dull. A dead person is nothing. You cannot use it.
So our body is made of 5 senses.
Your body is not made of 5 senses.
Air, water, fire.
It's not senses. They are elements.
Elements.
More than 5 elements. So lust, Prabhupada says, lust is reserved within the body, but it is given vent through the senses. Therefore, the senses are superior to the body as a whole. These outlets are not in use when there is superior consciousness or Krishna consciousness. So when you develop your spiritual life, then this lust cannot act on you because you are in control. When you are not developing your Krishna consciousness, then the senses become overpowers you, and then you say, "Oh, I will do it." Just like if you go to a bar with your friends, and if you are controlled, no matter what they tell you, you will not drink or whatever. But if you are not in control, then lust will overcome you, and you will think, "Oh, actually it tastes good, I will drink it." Your mind is telling you, "Oh, gone." But in the first place, you shouldn't go.
So it's like ultimately the senses overpowering the soul.
Yes.
Complete control.
Yes.
Okay, and just one quick question. What's the sixth sense? Like, is it something like the mind or the
The mind is the sixth sense.
Mind.
Yeah. It's a subtle sense. It's also a sense of, it's an element also. It's a material element also. So when you do service to Krishna, then the senses will be engaged. The senses will be engaged, right? You're seeing Krishna, you're singing Hare Krishna, you're smelling the incense, you're hearing, so many, all the senses purify, so the lust cannot bear on you. But if you don't do that sufficiently, then you lose ground, the senses overpower you. That's the difference. If you keep thinking about Krishna, then your mind gets purified, then you only think of Krishna. If you don't think of Krishna, then your mind is contaminated, and then the lust in there will push what it wants. That's how it happens. It's very scientific. So you can see for yourself, when you are able to do something and when your mind overpowers you, and then later on you regret, then you realize why.
How is that?
How it's happening. Because you are not pure enough. So you have to practice this. So it is good to train when they are young, so that they will not indulge in freely enjoying the senses. They will always control. That's why it's important to train. So everyone should perform some form of tapasya. So our tapasya would be chanting, eating prasadam, all those. Speaking about Krishna, not unnecessarily talking. All these are tapasya for us, in a sense, but it's purified in the real sense. Okay? So in the beginning, don't go and expose yourself to things that will disturb your senses. You practice, and then after that, once you're purified, also you won't even want to go to those places. But that's how you control. Otherwise, you never get a footing into making advancement. You just keep falling down, and then pointless.
Is there a difference between suppressing and controlling? Because the Lord says, like, if you try to suppress it, you will be a mityachari. So
Yeah.
forcefully you should not suppress.
No. This is all done through seva, or dovetailing your activities. Let's say you are singing nonsense every time, Bollywood songs. Now you sing Krishna songs. So that's
That redirecting the
redirecting, same activity but redirecting. So therefore you get purified. Instead of listening to some, I don't know, KW 90 something, now you listen to only tapes or CDs of Krishna Katha.
They have a radio station here, it's called K-Log.
I don't know.
But it's all good God, music, stuff like that, motivation for God.
They are not, see, when you listen to some people who are not purified of the senses, you will be contaminated to some extent. Even though it is good, it may feel good, no? These are feel good kind of stations. But they're never going to liberate you.
Material enjoyment,
Yeah.
just good for the
It's
ears.
more of goodness, that's all. At most it's more of goodness. But who are these people? They are just as lusty. They're all trying to make money. So you should be careful what you want to listen to. If your job requires you to listen to that, then
That's a duty.
then you do that, but you make sure you have more listening of Krishna to purify your contamination. So finally, Krishna says, Evam buddhe param buddhva
Evam buddhe param buddhva
samstabhyatmanam atmana jahi satrum mahabaho
Jahi satrum mahabaho
kamarupam durasadam. Thus, knowing oneself to be transcendental to the material senses, mind and intelligence, O mighty Arjuna, one should steady the mind by deliberate spiritual intelligence, Krishna consciousness, and thus by spiritual strength conquer this insatiable enemy known as lust. So first you have to accept that you are a spirit soul. Then you act on the platform of the spirit soul, which is to serve Krishna. If you don't do that, then lust will always be in the round 1, round 2 like that. This is very important to know. So now that you all are here within this Krishna conscious movement, you have an opportunity to rise above the material realm. It's an opportunity given. No one else is teaching you this. You can go any other groups. They are all unknown. They will tell you to carry on with your lusty life. Nobody tells you to how to control yourself, how to develop love for God. Most places they don't tell you. They just say pray, and that's about it. Yes.
Few days ago you said that Gandhiji, he misinterpreted some of the quoting from Gita. Can you give me some examples like so that we can be more cautious in our
because
life?
we heard that whenever Gandhi has a problem, he goes to the Gita and finds an answer.
What was his problem?
Yeah.
Politics.
Yeah.
He's just using it for politics, nothing else. But what is the goal of the Bhagavad Gita?
To go back home.
So spiritual purity. Did he teach the people how to purify?
But he was doing for the good cause,
Yeah.
Gandhiji.
Yeah, we are not denying that. We are talking about the right use and
When
the...
you say in politics, actually that gives a bad impression.
He
Gandhiji
was using for politics.
Politics.
He
he
was
was
using...
using to get the democracy of the country.
Yeah,
right?
but still it
He
is
was saving
politics.
lives actually.
We are doing freedom also.
It's politics.
No, so politics is not bad.
But it's
Politicians are bad today, but
Use it in
the
a
politics
right way.
itself, man.
Yeah.
No, the only good that he did was to help the independence, no?
Yeah.
But otherwise, the real help is what?
Right. Giving Krishna conscious knowledge.
That's right. The real help was that, which none of them touched on.
But one
But
thing,
This is a band-aid, no?
That was necessary for him to do, right?
It's a band-aid solution. He could have taught to the mass population what to do.
The point is like he did something good, like which.
Yeah, on a
which we
mundane
dislike,
level.
actually.
On a mundane level, yes. I'm not denying the mundane portion. I'm talking this book is a spiritual book. It teaches how to get out of all this nonsense, first of all. So therefore, in that sense, he wasn't using it properly.
So everybody uses a different reason, but
No, you totally misunderstood.
Second question is that Rama, he's called Maryada Purushottam.
Yes.
So he is more relevant in our daily life, like in this life, right? Like he's following like one like Krishna, which is ultimately to go back to out of the material world, right? Get out of the material world.
They are all relevant. Why only Ram?
Rama Purushottam, like in this life, the daily
Why?
struggle, challenges that we face.
Well, he killed someone who kidnapped his wife. Would you do that? This is so relevant, right? You say? No, it's not. You learn you don't imitate that. Remember we were talking, you don't imitate, you follow the instructions. So for this age, the instructions given by Bhagavad Gita in the Bhagavad Gita. So you follow that. What is the difficulty? What is the difference you see?
Actually, Krishna's life and Rama's life.
Why you compare his supreme personality of Godhead? First of all, you get that in your head. The Lord can do anything and everything.
But isn't Rama a form of Krishna? Like,
Yeah, so you learn the good from Ram also.
You can compare.
Yeah, exactly. You cannot just say, oh, because this one is better than...
And the
Okay, you are
story of
attracted to
personality.
Ram, that's I accept. Okay, you like more Ram, that's fine, nothing wrong. Still, for this age, you still have to chant the Hare Krishna mantra, even to go back to Ram.
So here when we say God,
Hmm?
we mean the supreme God, right?
Hmm?
Some may call it as Ram and some may call it as Krishna.
Yeah,
But
they are
it's ultimately
supreme personality. But even then, there is a hierarchy also within the spiritual world, which is revealed by our acharyas. The original person, the first person is Krishna. But we are not going to go into that. Okay. So for now, at least you are in this struggling situation. Why you worry about what the hierarchy is? Get out of this struggle.
like we say Hare Krishna, Krishna
Yes.
Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, right? In some followings like they say Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Yeah, so you have to follow the parampara teaching. See, when you want to say Hare Rama, in the Puranas or in the scripture, it says Om Hare Rama. But Lord Chaitanya changed it the other way for us, because to say Om, you must be at least, that's a beach mantra, no? So you must be a, you know, Brahmana.
Brahmanas, yeah. Brahmanas.
Okay, so who is Brahmana? Kaloshuddra. So therefore we chant the other way.
And Om is Radha, right?
Don't get into
What is the symbol of Om?
Om also represents Krishna.
Krishna, not Shiva.
The sound representation of Lord Krishna.
It's cosmic vibration.
Yes, some people say, but it is Krishna himself. Yes. We will come to that in 13th or 14th chapter. Huh?
He said, I'm among the syllables,
I'm Om, yeah. Yes. Badrina.
Now coming back to the soul thing.
Soul.
We always say, who is soul when we talk about it in the first few chapters?
Yes.
We say, we are soul.
Yes.
I am soul.
Yes.
When we say I am soul, when I say I or me, people consider it as ego, right? Isn't it that we always compare, whenever people say I did it,
Aham.
they say that it's an ego.
Yeah, that's the false ego. But the real
is
ego,
I and ego the same.
and when you identify it, it is yes. But when your pure soul, the pure soul is the ego, it's the consciousness, it is the person, it's everything. What you have to understand, there's a transcendental person you are, who's covered by a material false ego now. So you're identifying the body with the material false ego. You'll get it, but you are covered now.
A question without meaning God, but why Lord Krishna created other gods like Jesus, stuff like that? Why not have only Krishna and everybody believes in him only?
Because people want to have their own ways to live, and he gives the free will to do what you want. But at the same time, the knowledge is there.
So
those who really want, they will seek the
So
truth.
Jesus was Krishna too?
He is not Krishna. He never said he was God. He said, I am the Son of God.
Son of God.
So it's, other people made him God. It's all rubber stamping going on. No, he never said that. And Prabhupada never says that. We accept him as a guru. He taught how to love God. Not many people following it anyway. But if they follow, then they will also realize what we are teaching is no difference.
The ultimate goal is to reach God.
Exactly. Go back to this kingdom of God. No?
So every church and temple, they don't teach the same, the ultimate goal is to back home.
Well, I don't know what more church saying because I don't go there. So.
You know? any other church?
I don't think so, because you don't see them changing their lifestyle. I remember one time a Christian was saying, if your God is great, then you should be rich, you should have all the enjoyment. And that's how they talk, and I'm like, what?
They're changing now. Just in the past couple of years, they're using, they've changed some of the prayers in church. So when the priest makes one comment to you and there's supposed to be a response, they've changed the words now.
Oh yeah, they keep changing.
So you're not responding to the priest now. They've added the word spirit. So he's talking to you in spirit, you're talking to him in spirit. And the word Godhead is creeping in there. So
They are reading our books.
Yeah, so the Catholic Church is changing.
Good for them. Yeah, so finally they'll understand who God
Yeah,
is.
I mean, I like it because I can stand up because I've done so much reading throughout my lifetime. I recognize the changes and I know why it's happening.
Yes.
But I don't think anybody else in the room does.
Doesn't matter, slowly as you say.
They're just doing it.
See, the problem is, this is all still lip saying, they're just saying it. But they're not changing their life. They're not purifying their lifestyles. They're still doing...
No, because on one of the holidays, when you're allowed to bring gifts, I think it's just before Easter or something, a person in front of me had a whole case of wine. And I said, what are you doing with that case of wine? And they said, well, it's Monsignor Dale's favorite wine. And I thought, well, great, now I know that Monsignor Dale gets drunk every night.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's why it is never purified. And they're always under the lust anyway. So. But at least they're reading our books. It will, it will happen in the future. They'll all become Hare Krishna. Yeah, ultimately, who has the best knowledge to give?
This is the pure faith, right? Means now we cannot judge that everyone is like that. Okay? Means there are some people in the church also, they are very much attached to their spiritual things. So that is not wrong, right?
We are not saying it's wrong, it's just that where would it lead them to? How much higher can they progress spiritually? You have to also be very truthful in your assessment of their process also. Be objective.
I've come to that conclusion, that if I want to go to the next level, I can't do it with the Catholic Church.
Yeah, exactly. You need something more. They don't know about relationship with God. They don't know it exists at all.
So that's why you can hear it.
So when out of compassion, we can say, everyone is worshipping God, but the level, it's like when you go to primary school, you don't teach calculus. Even though it's part of maths, you can't teach them. So, and even Jesus says that, I know some things, but I cannot tell you at this time because you're not ready for it. There are some statements. Anyway, let's not worry about them. We'll worry about our purification. We are struggling.
Just to know,
We shouldn't worry too much, and then we get absorbed in those things, and then, as he is saying, you judge them. We don't want to judge them. Because they are also trying to understand God in their own way. So we appreciate their process also.
If you remember my first class, my question was not related to religious actually. That some are getting Krishna consciousness knowledge, but some are really not getting it. Even today also there are some places where the internet cannot go search, So now I think today I got this knowledge, it's because of their karma, past karma.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily past karma also.
So why are not getting it actually? Why Krishna is not blessing them?
No.
That is my question the other day.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying, you know now, so you can go to those places.
I will not go there. I won't go actually.
There will be people, there will be people
not,
who will go. We have gone, our movement has gone to almost every place. It's only a matter
today,
of
if you're
time.
asking, I won't go, but I don't know about tomorrow.
My point is that, meaning if you have studied enough, then you know you have to give it.
But my question was like, it's a little bit different actually, not...
You can't blame Krishna for it. Krishna
I'm
is
not
given.
blaming. I'm just asking the
No, when you
reasoning
ask why Krishna, means you're already saying it's his.
If you're blaming,
It's his
So
job.
maybe I'm blaming actually.
Yeah, you are. So we don't blame because Krishna has given everything. It's up to us to access it. How you access it is depending on our, basically we have false ego, we don't want to submit first of all. Then after many lifetimes, if we come to more of goodness and some purification, and by chance we meet a devotee who pleased us, then we come to the temple, we get some knowledge, it goes click, it makes sense. Then we hang on and then we try to learn more. Then after understanding, we should understand where were we 10 years ago, what were we doing. So there are many people like that. So to help them, we have to go out and give them books, meet with them, talk to them. Then you are creating their good fortune.
Right.
Yeah.
Now see, so many years has passed, so many soul has gone,
Yes.
life changed, you know.
Yes.
See, I'm so lucky that I was born in India,
Mhm.
that when I was born, I was introduced to Krishna.
Good.
Okay, so that's how, like, means we know Krishna, but still we have been so much ignorant that we never tried to, I never tried to learn about him. But there are so many places, like so many people, like here, Western culture also. Before Prabhupada came, I don't think Krishna consciousness existed, right? So that was my question actually that day. So I don't really understand why Krishna just gave those blessings to India or
India
to
only.
India.
Oh, you want to know why India? Well, you know, in 5,000 years ago, the whole planet was blessed. The whole planet was Krishna conscious. Thousands of years ago, everyone in the Vedic culture, yeah, everywhere.
Is there only one path to Krishna consciousness, or there are multiple paths you can follow?
Krishna says all paths. If you follow Vedic culture, whatever is taught in the Vedas should come to this conclusion.
So there are different paths, right? Like there is Jnana Yoga, and there is Karma.
Yeah, but all yoga should come to the same conclusion.
But the paths are different.
The path is in a hierarchy of a ladder.
Okay, so what's that hierarchy?
It's like first you do is karma kanda, then jnana yoga, then karma yoga. Karma yoga, jnana yoga, then you come to Astanga yoga. Astanga yoga is kind of slight, but still, Astanga yoga should lead you to bhakti, ultimately.
Also on the day of Krishna.
Huh? Yeah, I know. I expected you all have taken it down, so
Yeah,
yeah, so his question, I haven't answered yet. So, the whole world was called Bharatvarsha. So then as the culture was eroded, then it get cut back until the Indian subcontinent. Now, Indian subcontinent is blessed because the Lord advented there, and it's a pious land, first of all. So he has taken birth there. Now, he could have taken birth in India, and this would have been Bharatvarsha. Then you guys will be going to India because it will be America. It's like that. You just try to understand. It's a pious continent. The river Ganga is there, so it's a pious land. So he takes birth where this culture is practiced. In previous ages, the whole planet was practicing.
Then why only that country suffers a lot?
Because you should know better. And you're not practicing, so therefore you suffer more.
That country.
Yeah, so that's it. They suffer because they are ignoring what they are supposed to practice from. Therefore, India suffers the most.
But isn't that like you don't suffer because you're in that more devotional mode?
Yeah, but you can see, right? Actually, you can see they're suffering more than the others.
Second, we are judging that they are suffering, but actually they are not suffering, right?
But no, they are suffering. Everyone suffers in the material first of all.
But that country suffers more, you say.
They are suffering. Everything you take to India won't last long. Have you tried that?
I didn't get it.
You take things to India, it won't last long. Everything breaks down. Even your computer, no matter how brand new, it'll break down after a short while. I've seen it. India is a land for austerity and religious purposes.
But it's like a spiritual land.
It is, that's why it's meant for austerity. It's not meant for anything else. So and you find you practice austerity there is easier.
Yeah,
it's
that's true.
It is. I know. I'm not from there, but it's a fact.
So we're trying to do something else.
Yeah, exactly. What you are meant to do, you're doing something. So Prabhupada used to say, America, India has the spiritual potency, America has the material capability. So it's like a blind man and a lame person. So the person who is blind should carry the person who's lame, and together they can be successful.
I'm finding it different actually. I think after coming here, the devotional service is increased, it's the urge of knowing knowledge increased than in India, because there was so much devoted.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's why I'm saying, because they are pursuing materialism, whereas their constitutional position should be spiritual life in that land, holy land there.
Actually, it used to be. Even last generation, my parents' generation, I know,
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
not of spirituality, but it is deteriorating.
Yeah,
Right.
because you
More
have
rapid.
no, because you have bad leaders, very
Corrupt.
like that. So they are pursuing only materialism. So they encourage all the. Even I read one time in the High Court judge or what they said that some lady wanted to live without marriage. In India, there's some law you can't do that, and then she argued the court case that if Krishna can do it, why can't we do it like that? So therefore, they don't seem to understand what is good for them. But you guys know now, you can influence people in India slowly and help them. It's a little bit knowledge is helpful for them. Make them think, because they are not thinking mostly. They are thinking through their senses.
But they are willing to listen.
That's what I'm saying. So make them think. If they listen properly, they will change.
And the life has become so hard there, working hours is I think 12
I heard, yeah.
to 14 hours, so that's kind of very.
The worship level, worship has gone up so much because of materialism. People, I think they feel guilty. So I see the people, the temples, number of temples, everything has increased.
You mean to say the ritual activities?
Yeah. But it's not spiritual.
Not spiritual.
They're trying to wash their sins.
Yeah, they believe that much. What we call, they believe in those kind of supernatural things, but they will not believe in God. That's a word for it.
Superstitious?
No, not superstitious. It's agnostic. It's agnostic. They will believe all the power, you can fly and all, they want that, so they believe that. But to submit to someone who's superior to them, they cannot anymore, which is what you find people don't want to surrender to someone else, particularly God. Anyway, this, as you said, we are beginning and we are reading, we are learning, so practice what we learn. We'll make a lot of advancement over the coming months and years.
So you come often, so you should come often.
We will come as often as we can. So tomorrow we'll start chapter 4. Okay.
So how long you are here now? How long you will be here?
I'll be here till next week, Wednesday.